almost done with the setup. Okay. Omagyatimidandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurava Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Dechatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srimati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Bangum Langayate Girim Yatrapatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Vidatarinam. We completed or studied to some extent the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita so far. Now coming on to the 11th chapter. Let me show slide. So in the 10th chapter, we saw, like, in one sense, we can take overall view of the 10th chapter as C, where Krishna is being acknowledged as the source of everything from verses 1 to 7. And then we had the Chatashloki Gita, the 4 verses of Gita, which were the essence, where Krishna says, I am the origin of everything. This is how my devotees are with me, and this is how I relate to the devotees. That is verses 8 to 11. And then in the second session, we discussed the 12 to 42, verses number 12 to 42, where Krishna expressed, Arjuna asks us, yes, you are the source of all. You are the one to whom one has to render loving devotional service. But in this world, how do I perceive you? And in response to that, Krishna talks about his various vibhutis or opulences. So things of this world happen because of sanction from the Supreme Lord, and they are a reflection of they are a minute reflection of the power of the Supreme Lord. So that is why that chapter was called Vibhuti Yoga, where the vibhutis or the opulences of the absolute truth, Sri Krishna, was mentioned. Now, when we come to this 11th chapter, the overview, nonsense can be said as Rupa. That is, initially, after getting to know how Krishna's powers are present throughout this world, Arjuna becomes curious for a particular reason, that within this earth that you are seeing here, I am able to see a partial manifestation of your energy in various ways. But can I see your cosmic rupa or cosmic manifestation, which is the one in which the entire material world and all that is happening, can I see it in one place? And why does Arjuna ask Krishna for it? There's a reason for it, which will come to the next few verses. That is in verse 1 to 4. And in response to that,
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji, please tell me.
Prabhu, can you please increase the volume a little bit?
Wait a minute, Mataji. Just a minute, Mataji. Check some things. I made some changes. So let me check it. Are you able to hear better now? I can do one other settings too.
We can hear
Yes,
better, Prabhu.
yes, Prabhu. Better now.
Okay, I had closed my laptop and I think my laptop has to be open. Okay. So that's where it is. Let me do one thing. Stop share. Are you still able to hear clearly now? I just made one more change in the setting. Is it clear?
Yes, yes, Prabhu.
Okay. So, yeah, yes. Okay. So Krishna is, in response to Arjuna's request, Krishna does show the universal form in verse number 5 to 14. And having seen this verse, this universal form, in verse number 15 to 45, it's a long section, Arjuna starts praising Krishna. He has a newfound appreciation and another perspective of Krishna. Why? We'll come to know about that too. And then he comes to the two-armed, and then finally Arjuna at the end of these prayers says, this universal form looks very ghastly. It looks very frightening for me. And can you come back to your original form? And when he comes back to his original form, Krishna shows his four-handed form and then his two-handed form. And within these set of verses, that is 46 to 55, is a very important reason for us to appreciate why we worship the Supreme Lord in his two-handed form. So we'll come to that too in verse 46 to 55. So for the first four verses, we understand that having theoretically known some things, what is the mood by which we have to practically experience something? That we learn from this first four verses of this chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Then the next set of verses will be that Krishna, through the commentaries by Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas, then from 5 to 14, we'll understand that how Krishna becomes accessible to people of various types. So mostly the first two aspects, the R and the U, the request and the universal form, is what I think we can possibly cover. Then Arjuna's prayers and the four-armed and the two-armed forms, most likely we'll cover it in the following week. Krishna willing. Okay. So you are able to see the slide too, Mataji, isn't it? It's fine here, right?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Okay. So coming to this. So the first lesson that we learned from this chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So let's explore the connection between chapter 10 and chapter 11. The chapter 10 actually ended with verse number 42. In verse number 42, after hearing Krishna's words, after hearing Arjuna's request and Krishna speaking about it, Krishna says, Atava bahunaitena kim jnatena tavarjuna vistabhyaham idam kritsnam ekamshena stito jagat. He says, what need is there, O Arjuna, for this detailed knowledge?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
I see your PowerPoint, not the web page. Is that what you intended?
Yeah, I'm not. I'm just reading it from the book itself.
Okay.
I'll come back to the web page about the verses very soon. So here, Krishna tells Arjuna, what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With just a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. Right? So, in one sense, Krishna opens the box for Arjuna's next question, which is, oh, just a fragment of himself, like what Krishna told Arjuna so far, was that just a fragment of himself, all the vibhutis are present. The opulences of this world are just a minute fragment. But then he pervades and supports this entire universe. Is there a form for that, supporting this entire universe on all pervasive form? So Arjuna becomes curious about it now. So and why does he become curious about it? Because Krishna, that Supreme Lord, is present right in front of him. So there is a time and there's a space in which Krishna is present in front of Arjuna. And yet, he pervades the entire world. So if I were to say, I'm sitting here and I'm also present throughout the entire world, you would expect me to have a very gigantic form
going for all the way from all the different galaxies and etc. So you will be able to see only, one portion of my body. You'd not be able to see my head, etc., which may be somewhere else. But Arjuna was able to see Krishna fully. And this seems to be mystical. Hey, you are here in front of me, O Krishna, and you are saying you're pervading this entire universe. I accept what you're saying. Can you please show me how this is true? This is the mood of a devotee, in which the questioning is in the mood of, there is always something more that I don't know. You can be possibly telling me what I don't know. Can you please elaborate? In contrast, a mundane or a materialistic mindset will be, I have studied all the way from first grade all the way to a bachelor's degree and a master's degree and a doctorate degree. I have analyzed everything. If I cannot understand this, most likely you are telling something wrong. That's the difference in the mood. That here is Arjuna who says, I understand, so I can hear what you're saying, but there are some things which are beyond me. Can you please reveal it to me? So this mood of humility is the link from chapter 10 to chapter 11. And in preparation for this chapter 11, Kumarika Mataji, in the past 1 week, in the morning sessions, she spoke this very famous verse, which was given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Trinadapi sunichena taroriva sahishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. One has to feel more humble than a trinadapi sunichena, more humbler than a blade of straw. And it is only then that one can do kirtaniya sadaharihi. One can glorify the Supreme Lord if one is in a humble state of mind and in a humble state of consciousness. And we'll see this humble state of consciousness of Arjuna further. So I'll go to this verses here. And in in today's session, a little unlike the few previous sessions, I'd like to go more into Srila Prabhupada's purports. We find certain things in Srila Prabhupada's purports which clarifies everything for us here. And so that was my objective of going through these set of verses. I'm not completing the full chapter, but only some portion of this chapter. So chapter 11 begins with Arjuna Uvacha Mad Anugrahaya Paramam Guhyam Adhyatma Samnitam Yat Tvayoktam Vachastena Moho Ayam Vigato Mama. Translation. Arjuna said, by my hearing the instructions, you have kindly given me about these most confidential spiritual subjects. My illusion has now been dispelled. So the significant word here is this Mad Anugrahaya. Mad Anugrahaya means just to show me favor. Arjuna is telling Krishna, just to show me this favor, you have given me this Chatushloki Bhagavad Gita, the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, which is the essence of the Upanishads. You have given me the most confidential spiritual knowledge. And because of which, what is happening? Moho ayam vigato mama. His illusion is over. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is saying, what is the meaning of this illusion is over? Srila Prabhupada writes, this means that Arjuna no longer thinks of Krishna as a mere human being, as a friend of his, but as the source of everything. Because that was the first of the Chatushloki verses in the Bhagavad Gita. In verse 8 of chapter 10, I am the source of everything. Krishna said, now Arjuna knows that. Then Srila Prabhupada continues to say, Arjuna is very enlightened and glad that he has such a great friend as Krishna. Like, just imagine for all of us, the Supreme Lord is our friend and we get to know that he's there with us. Or just for example, say I have the Prime Minister as my friend. He has been with me all along and now that person has become the Prime Minister. So we will feel happy. But Arjuna has a concern. His concern is that he may accept Krishna as the source of everything because probably he is subjective, but others need to be objective. Arjuna has a natural affinity and friendship for Krishna, but it is not so for the rest of the people of this world. And Arjuna also knows that this conversation with Krishna is going to be recorded for posterity. How? Great devotees know that any interaction with the Supreme Lord, if it is of value for anybody, it will be recorded by some sage later. That is why it is said that the scriptures are revealed. It is not that we get to understand scriptures by logic. It is revealed to a person who has the humility in his heart to want to experience and be in communion with the absolute truth. So Arjuna's concern is that Krishna has said he's the absolute source of everything. He can accept it. But what about the rest of the world? So for that reason, Srila Prabhupada writes that Arjuna is asking Krishna to reveal this expansive, form in which he encompasses the entire universe. And Srila Prabhupada writes, actually, when one sees the universal form of Krishna, one becomes frightened like Arjuna. This is going to happen at the end, around the 30th, around some in the 30s verses. But Krishna is so kind that after showing it, he converts himself again into his original form. Arjuna agrees to what Krishna has several times said. Krishna speaks to him just for his benefit. So Arjuna acknowledges all that is happening to him is by Krishna's grace. He's now convinced. And so this particular statement which Srila Prabhupada writes, Arjuna agrees to what Krishna has several times said. Krishna is speaking to him just for his benefit. This is the same mood in which a spiritual master also speaks to us. Or even if you take out the spiritual master, even if there are other devotees around us, if we are in the company of very good practicing devotees, mostly they will be speaking to us for our benefit. They may ask questions. It may be critical questions, or it may be a passing remark, and we have to be alert, especially in the association of devotees, that maybe Krishna is inspiring them to do something for my benefit, and therefore let me be cautious. Some of you who attended the Ramayana session yesterday, we heard how the Lord is very subtle. He is subtle for those who can actually accept it, and for those who cannot, who are not purified enough to access his subtlety, they have to they approach the Supreme Lord. They have to get to know about the Supreme Lord only through some gross actions. For example, what are those gross actions? It can be death, it can be misery, or it can be some change in circumstances around us, etc. Only when these visibly changing circumstances come in front of us, we begin to understand some good advice that is given to us. But in the case of devotees, when they get purified by the chanting of the holy name, subtle indications are sufficient. How? Like, for example, when Lord Brahma met Krishna, Krishna hardly spoke to Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma gave many, many prayers, recited many verses. He was just looking at Brahma silently and smilingly. And Brahma understood something. In a similar manner, we should also understand that the entire community of devotees are there to help us. And we should be ready to take that help by opening our heart to the instructions as well as the actions which we see from other devotees. There's a famous thing, I think there's an important aspect which I've said before, and maybe I'll tell again because this is what I learned in one of the courses. Bhakti or Krishna consciousness is learned as much caught as it is taught. So there is some aspect of bhakti that is taught, but there is also another aspect of it which is caught by observing others, which is caught by just being a part of somebody else's service. It need not be that everything has to be done by us alone. Even by being part of somebody else's service, we can catch bhakti. So so that's why it's very important to be in the association of devotees. Okay. So the next verse. Arjuna says, Bhavapyo hi bhutanam shrutau vistarasho maya tvatta kamala patraksha mahatmyam apicha avyayam. So in this verse, Arjuna is saying, he's addressing Krishna as lotus-eyed one. And why is he doing this? He's telling Kamala Patraksha. He's giving it as a lotus. He's addressing Krishna as lotus-eyed one. And the Acharyas give the commentary here. If you look at this translation, Arjuna is saying, I have heard from you in detail about the appearance and disappearance of every living entity, and have also realized your inexhaustible glories. Right? So the Acharyas say that Arjuna is addressing Krishna as Kamala Patraksha because one needs a broad vision, a broad and a pleasing vision to actually understand this reality. And the word Kamala is the word Kamala becomes purified because Lord Vishnu is holding this flower Kamala in his hand. And just by the dint of Lord Vishnu holding it in his hand, it becomes sanctified. And when the eyes are like this lotus, it means that we are having access to that pure vision. So unless one has this connection to the absolute truth, one cannot have this pure vision. Okay. And there is one other important word that is coming up here, and this is called avyayam. So what is happening here is Arjuna is actually summarizing what he has learned from Krishna in the previous chapters or in the previous set of verses. In chapter 7, text 6, Krishna had told Arjuna, Aham Krishnasya Jagataha Prabhavaha Pralayasthatha. He said, I am the creation and destruction of the whole universe. Right? So that is this Avyayam Mahatmyam, his inexhaustible powers, or Mahatmyam is glories or powers. So it was there in chapter 7 itself when Krishna said, I am the person who does this creation and destruction. And then in chapter, he also said in that chapter and in the following chapters, he said that although I am the creator of everything, I do not undergo change. Avyayam also means something that doesn't have any change. Okay. So having said that, Krishna also stated in chapter 9, text 4, that Maya tatam idam sarvam, that I pervade this entire universe. So that's also the summarizing all the statements is what Arjuna is telling here. And this is something that we can learn when we communicate with others. So this is transcendental communication between Krishna and Arjuna. But when we talk to others too, it is important that we make the other person understand we have heard him or her. So it is better that when we hear from something, we also summarize. You told me this, you told me that, and now this is my further question. Instead of that, we often we commit a mistake when we speak, which is we hear something from a person, we take an inference, and then we just give out that inference. So the other person doesn't know whether we have really understood what it means. And sometimes we might have come up with the wrong inference. So it is better to clearly state, like how Arjuna is stating, you have told this, and I understand this. But my question will be something else. Now, Srila Prabhupada also writes that, adding some more commentary from the previous acharyas, Arjuna addresses Lord Krishna as lotus-eyed out of his joy, for Krishna has assured him in the previous chapter, Aham Krishnasya Jagataha Prabhava Pralayastha. Right? Arjuna has heard of this from the Lord in detail. And Arjuna knows that in spite of Krishna being the source of all appearance and disappearance, he is aloof from them. And this 9th chapter is verse number 4 in the 9th chapter, that he is all pervading, yet he is not personally present everywhere. And this is inconceivable for all of us. He is the source of everything, he's present everywhere, but still not present everywhere. And we discussed this too at that point in time when we covered chapter 9. Then Arjuna says, Evametad yatha tatvam atmanam parameshwara drashtum ichchami te rupam aishwaram purushottama. O greatest of all personalities, O supreme form, though I see you here before me in your actual position, as you have described yourself, I wish to see how you have entered into this cosmic manifestation. I want to see that form of yours, because Krishna said in the verse 42 that he pervades this entire universe. And now Arjuna is asking exactly about that particular word which Krishna had spoken. And then comes this very important verse and the very important phrase here. We have to really keep it in mind, keep it to our heart, this particular phrase. Manyesi yadi. This phrase is very, very critical for all of us who are practitioners of Bhakti Yoga. Manyesi yadi. Let's read this verse. Manyesi yadi tat shakyam maya drashtum iti prabho yogeshwara tato me tvam darshayatmanam avyayam. Manyesi yadi. If you think that shakyam, that I am able to behold your cosmic form, O my Lord, O Master of all mystic power, then kindly show me that unlimited universal self. So the key here is that something may be a reality, but are we qualified to see that reality? Are we qualified to experience it? There may be many things in this world that are present, but do we have the qualification for that? Or even further, is it really necessary for us? Now, Arjuna is telling Krishna, if you think that I'm qualified for it, please let me know. Please give me that vision. And this vision is something that this mood is something that we should be always having in our own lives. The reason being, we should not be thinking that we are the conquerors of this world. If we are thinking that we are going to be the conquerors of this world, I am going to achieve something by my own strength. In the later chapters, Krishna is going to tell that such a person is a person of a demoniac nature. A person of a demoniac nature thinks, so much I have achieved today and so much more I will achieve tomorrow. I know so much now and I will get to know something more tomorrow. This reliance on our own abilities actually disqualifies us from accessing the absolute truth, from getting to know deeper mysteries of this universe, deeper mysteries of the Supreme Lord. That cannot happen if we have this mode of conquering. And just to take the similar example that I have said many times earlier, the mountaineers climb a mountain to go to the peak of the mountain and claim, and they put their flag, and then they say, I am the first one to reach the top, or I am also one among them who has reached the top. Many people who go for trekking, they think, yes, I have achieved something. But in that very same mountain, there are caves. And in that cave, the sages go there to take shelter of the cave in the mountain and focus on the absolute truth. And what is their mood? Their mood is, I need shelter. Oh, my dear mountain, you have been created by the Supreme Lord, and you are also a person. Please give me shelter so that I can get access to the absolute truth. Two people go to the mountain. Both of them have different moods. One wants to conquer the mountain. One wants to take shelter of the mountain. In the same way, our approach in life should be very similar. Not just with the absolute truth, but with everything in life. That even say, for example, if we are working in an office with some folks, it should not be like we should take advantage of our position and say, now you tell me, what have you done? Rather, our mood should be, can you please enlighten me how you did it? I'd like to understand. And can you help me understand? That is how we apply this verse in our day-to-day life itself. If you think that I'm able to understand it or to have a visualization of it, please help me with it. So that mood is very critical. And this mood, when we carry it, it endears Supreme Lord to us. He likes this. And you will see, as you practice this more with the people in your office, in your workplace, with your spouse, with your family members, and even in our chanting. Every day, when we chant, we should be in the mood that, my dear Krishna, if you so wish, can you please allow the holy name to come on my tongue? Please reveal yourself unto me as much as you can. And please, if you deem it so appropriate, please engage me in your service as you like. This mood, if you like, manyesi yadi, if you think it to be appropriate, is the one, if as you practice it in your life, you will see that your heart will be filled with realizations and you will be imbued with the strength for accomplishing things which you would never be having. And you'll be given with circumstance, you'll be, some circumstances will manifest in your life by which you will get all the benefits that you can actually get. And you will realize, hey, this was not possible by me. This manyes yadi, if you think I'm able to be whole, which is the same mood which Kumarika Mataji was speaking for the entire last week. Pranadapi sunichena tarorapi sahishnuna. More humbler than a blade of straw, more tolerant than a tree. In this mood, one has to approach the Supreme Lord. Okay. Now, what was Krishna's response to this statement of Arjuna? Shri Bhagavan uvacha pashyame partha rupani shatasho atasahasrashaha nana vidhani devyani nana varna krutani cha. Translation: the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Shri Bhagavan uvacha, my dear Arjuna, Partha, my O son of Pritha, see now my opulences, hundreds of thousands of very divine and multicolored forms. Right? So Arjuna asked for it in a humble mood, and Krishna is immediately reciprocating. Pashyadityan vasun rudran ashvinau marutas tatha bahuni adrishta purvani pashya ascharyani bharata. O best of the Bharatas, see here the different manifestations of Adityas, Vasus, Rudras, Ashwini Kumaras, and all the other demigods. Behold the many wonderful things which no one has ever seen or heard before. So this is a form in which there are these Adityas, Vasus, and Rudras. And why does Krishna first talk about the Adityas, Vasus, and the Rudras? These are the primary devatas. According to the Rig Veda, there are 33 primary devatas. Who are they? Dwadasha Adityas. They are the 12 Adityas, who are the sons of Aditi. Ekadash Rudras, or the 11 Rudras, and Ashta Vasu, 8 Vasus. So 12 plus 8, 20 plus 11, 31. Where, what about the other two? The other two is, one is Brahma, and one more I'm forgetting here. So I'll have to look up at that reference in the Rig Veda. So in that sense, we have these 33 devatas, and Krishna showing this universal form which has all these devatas itself, which means it looks to be very different from what Arjuna has seen of Krishna. His form is not like that. And now this universal form seems to be very different. And that is why he says, Ascharyani. It's so wonderful if you can see all the devatas in one universal form. Is it possible at all? We'll come to that pictorial representation in the slide very soon. But before that, I just want to go through some verses, and because for lack of time, I want to complete some passages from Srila Prabhupada's purport. Next, verse number 7. Krishna says, Ihaikastam jagat kritsam pashyadhyasa characharam mama dehe gudakesha yacha anyad drashtumichasi. O Arjuna, whatever you wish to see, and behold at once in this body of mine, this universal form can show you whatever you now desire to see and whatever you may want to see in the future. Everything, moving and non-moving, is here completely in one place. Srila Prabhupada writes some important points as we go forward here. No one can see the entire universe while sitting in one place. Even the most advanced scientists cannot see what is going on in other parts of the universe. But a devotee like Arjuna can see everything that exists in any part of the universe. Krishna gives him the power to see anything he wants to see, past, present, and future. Thus, by the mercy of Krishna, Arjuna is able to see everything. You see, it is only through the purpose of Srila Prabhupada here that we are able to get a very favorable view of Krishna. Now, somebody may also write a commentary on this and come up with their own meanings. So, it is important for us that if we really want to appreciate the absolute truth, we have to hear from a person who really has that appreciation. And Srila Prabhupada is one such acharya. And now he goes on to further elucidate to us about this universal form. Like Srila Prabhupada in his purport to this coming verse, verse number 8, is going to talk about a very important aspect, which I think with this verse itself will end for today. I thought of going up to verse 14, but I think I'll have to stop here. Krishna says, Natumam shakya se drashtum anenaiva swachakshusha divyam dadami te chakshuho pashyame yogamaishwaram. But you cannot see me with your present eyes. Therefore, I give you divine eyes. Behold my mystic opulence. So what is the eyes that Krishna is giving him? He's saying, Na tume shakyase drashtum anenaiva swachakshusha. Swachakshusha, with your eyes you cannot see. Divyam dadamete chakshuhu. I will give you a transcendental eye. Divyam. Divine eyes, by which you can see me. Behold my mystic opulence. And what does Srila Prabhupada write? A pure devotee does not like to see Krishna in any form except his form with two hands. But this is not what Krishna is going to show to Arjuna. He's not the one with two hands. He is going to show his universal form. And so Srila Prabhupada writes, a devotee must see his universal form by his grace, not with the mind, but with spiritual eyes. Right? So, Srila Prabhupada further writes, devotees who are correctly situated in a transcendental relationship with Krishna are attracted by loving features, not by a godless display of opulences. So there are loving features of the Supreme Lord, and there are opulences, like a lot of wealth, power, fame, beauty, etc. There are many people in this world who have all those opulences. But when it is not connected to Krishna, when people want to bring the focus on themselves, or if I see a beautiful lady and I just want to enjoy that beautiful lady, that is an indication that we are not correctly situated in the transcendental relationship. Srila Prabhupada writes, the playmates of Krishna, the friends of Krishna, and the parents of Krishna never want Krishna to show his opulences. And what is this universal form? This universal form is showing his opulence. In fact, Mother Yashoda too saw this universal form of Krishna. There are different universal forms. One is the one which is being displayed, which is being discussed now in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, we will hear about a similar universal form. In the Bhagavatam, when Mother Yashoda asks Krishna to open his mouth when he has eaten dirt, she sees another universal form. These are all different universal forms. And when Mother Yashoda sees Krishna with the universal form, she thinks, oh, something has happened to my Krishna. I think some demon has afflicted him. She doesn't realize that he is a Supreme Lord because she does not want to see him as a Supreme Lord. The devotees do not want to see him in his mood of opulence. They want to see his sweetness. And that's why Srila Prabhupada writes, they are so immersed in pure love that they do not even know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In their loving exchange, they forget that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that the boys who play with Krishna are all highly pious souls. And after many, many births, they're able to play with Krishna. Such boys do not know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They take him as a personal friend. And therefore, Shukadeva Goswami recites this verse. Ittam satam brahma sukhanubhutya dasyam katanam paradaivatena maya shrutanam naradarakena sakam vichakru krita punya punja. Here is the supreme person who is considered the impersonal Brahman by great sages, the supreme personality of Godhead by devotees, and a product of material nature by ordinary men. So different people think of Krishna differently. Some people think he's Brahman, some think he's the Supreme Lord who has a personal feature. Some persons think the Supreme Lord is an agglomeration of all this material world. It's a product of, and some people even think he is just a product of material nature. Why? Because he was born from the womb of Devaki. It is only if a mother eats some food and etc. and the father is present, mother and father unite, then the child is born, and therefore is a product of material nature. Krishna is just like a human being like us. Some people think that way. But this Supreme Lord is thought about in all these different ways. But there are these living entities who have performed immense tapasya in several lives, and they have been born as these gopas, these boys. They are playing with that Supreme Lord. And he's wonderful, he's just wonderstruck, right? So Srila Prabhupada writes, the fact is that the devotee is not concerned with seeing the Vishwarupa. The devotee is concerned with playing with the Supreme Lord. He is not concerned with seeing the Vishwarupa. But Arjuna wanted to see it to substantiate Krishna's statements so that in the future people could understand that Krishna could not only theoretically or philosophically presented himself as the Supreme, but actually presented himself as such to Arjuna. Right? So if suppose tomorrow somebody asks, somebody says, I am the Supreme Lord. There are many people, there are many gurus, and not just gurus, there are many personalities who say, I am the Supreme Lord. I am the incarnation of Kalki. And you should just follow me. You can just go and ask him, I accept you as you are saying. Please, if you consider me to be worthy of it, please show me your universal form. Then we'll get to know the truth about it. There are all these fake people. We can easily make them come down to the ground reality by asking them, show me your universal form. Here, I want to bring about one additional point here. This is also a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam about this universal form, nature of the universal form of the absolute truth. You're able to see this verse, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Just a minute, let me see. Oh, Microsoft PowerPoint is not working. Something here. Let me try. Just give me a moment, please. Yeah. Okay. Now you're able to see, right? After my PowerPoint crashed.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. So this is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 14, where Shukadeva Goswami is saying, Yavanna jayeta paravare asmin vishveshware drashtari bhakti yogaha tavat staviyah purushasya rupam kriyavasane prayata smare. In the Srimad Bhagavatam too, Shukadeva Goswami talks about this universal form of the Supreme Lord, where all the devatas are present. And in a few verses from now, we will hear from Arjuna himself that he sees Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, he sees the creation, he sees the destruction of the universe, he sees the war, he sees how everybody is going to die. Everything he's able to see in this universal form. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami reveals about another universal form, which is you consider from all the planetary systems, from the lowest planetary system to the highest planetary system, you will see all of them in that form of the Supreme Lord. So that is one kind of the universal form of the Supreme Lord. What is given in the Bhagavad Gita is another kind of universal form of the Supreme Lord. And yet, Shukadev Goswami says that, as per this verse, there are those who are who have not developed an attitude of love and attachment to the Supreme Lord, whatever be the reason. We don't want to come to the state of judging them or anything. For such people, it is helpful to worship this universal form. Why? Srila Prabhupada writes, or let me give the meaning for this, recite the meaning for this verse first. Unless the gross materialist develops a sense of loving service unto the Supreme Lord, who is the seer of both the transcendental and material worlds, he, that is this gross materialist, should remember or meditate upon the universal form of the Lord at the end of his prescribed duties. So those who are too attached to their likes, their dislikes, I want to do this, I want that, everybody should come and serve me, but yet maybe there is a higher purpose in life. So for such people, what they should do is, they should follow the Vedic scriptures as, if you are a Brahmana, these are your duties. If you are a Kshatriya, these are your duties. And at the end of their duties, they should meditate on this universal form of the Supreme Lord. And Srila Prabhupada writes, those who are impersonalists and are unable to render any loving service to the Lord have been advised to meditate upon his impersonal feature, the Virata Rupa or universal form. Some way or the other, one must try to re-establish one's forgotten relationship with the Lord, if one at all desires to gain real happiness in life and to reclaim his natural, unfettered condition. For the less intelligent beginners, meditation on the impersonal feature, the Virat Rupa or universal form of the Lord, will gradually qualify one to rise to personal contact. So one should, the access to the deity form of the Supreme Lord, who is still a personal form, is not for such a person. He cannot, a person who likes the impersonal aspect, or a person who is very much attached to getting things done his way, cannot have an appreciation for the deity form. He will think this is just a piece of wood, stone, marble, granite, something like that. So for such people, think about the vastness of the Supreme Lord. I am trying to accomplish, say, for example, rulership of Karnataka. But here is a Supreme Lord who has rulership of the entire world. So he learns submissiveness. He learns that he's just a small part and parcel of the Absolute. And just by that connection with the Absolute, gradually there will be a purification in the heart. This is for some people. This is not for all. And Srila Prabhupada writes, as soon as such meditation begins, one develops godly qualities. By doing this meditation, one develops godly qualities, and the world appears to be a happy and peaceful residence for all the people of the world. Without such meditation on God, either personal or impersonal, all good qualities of the human being become covered with misconceptions regarding his constitutional position. So the reason I'm trying to bring about here is this. In this chapter, Srila Prabhupada is, through the purpose of the Acharyas, clearly telling this universal form is not the one which we should go for. This universal form is not an eternal manifestation. It is a manifestation to help people with certain proclivities to come to the stage of devotion. And how is it that we are getting to know? Srila Prabhupada is taking like these set of verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, the verses from the Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures, putting it together to give a unified view. Many times we think that just by my scholarly understanding, I should read Bhagavad Gita only from that verse and see what is happening. But sacred literature doesn't work that way. Sacred literature has a context. And that context is that there's a whole body of literature. We have to in understanding those words, we'll have to take the entire corpus of literature and come to a cohesive understanding. Otherwise, we will be bewildered. And why am I emphasizing so much on this? Most of us here in this call are in Bangalore. When you go from Bangalore on the Bangalore-Tumkur highway, just after Yeshwanthpur, a little after Yeshwanthpur, sometime after Pini or before Pini, I don't recollect. There is a temple which has on the left-hand side, you will see there is a temple for the Vishwarupa form of the Supreme Lord. And many people visit this temple, and many of them think, I want to worship the Supreme Lord in this Vishwarupa feature. Not just that. As I was speaking earlier in the previous session, Sripad Adi Shankaracharya also said that, yes, Krishna is the Supreme Lord, he has to be worshipped, and his worship has to be in this form of this Vishwarupa. And why did he say Vishwarupa? Because he was giving the impersonal philosophy, and for them, the purification is in worshipping this aspect of the Supreme Lord. But those of us who have had the privilege to get access to the Vaishnava Acharyas know that this is a preliminary stage. The worship of the impersonal absolute is a preliminary stage, and we'll also get to know more about it in the 12th chapter. And therefore, please do not get confused. If somebody says, worship the Virat Rupa form of the Supreme Lord, that is a form which only talks about the greatness of Krishna's powers. It is rather helpful for us to know how tiny and how insignificant we are. But a pure devotee would love to access a different form of the Supreme Lord, which is the same, the two-handed form of Krishna, which we'll get to know through the end of this chapter. With this, I'll stop here. Any comments or any thoughts?
So Prabhu, so what you are trying to say, or what Srila Prabhupada is trying to say, that we should switch from the greatness of Krishna, which is there in the Virat Rupa, to sweetness of Krishna, which is there in the two-handed form.
Yes. But the thing here is, since most of us are conditioned, at this stage in life, it is important to know the greatness of Krishna, because we try to become great by our own selves. So to temper our own selves, we should know the greatness of Krishna at our stage of life.
But Prabhu, don't you think that more than the Virat Rupa of Krishna, people are after this Jyoti form? I mean, this light. They don't. I mean, I come across people who are talk about more about this, focusing on the light or some Divya Punja or something.
This Jyoti form is actually even a form of Krishna. This is actually a vestige of the Buddhist faith. There are these, I forget which, there are different sects or strands of Buddhism. One of the strands of Buddhism has this focus on the light as a means to finally achieve that Shunyavada, not Shunyavada, that Shunyata, the nothingness, because Buddhism focuses all about nothingness. So how do you come to nothing? From something you come to nothing, decrease that something to the bare minimal, which is the light. And from that light, by focusing our consciousness on that light, then slowly we'll come to that nothingness. And we have a long pending, request that or the desire of the devotees in this and in other groups, that how does this philosophy compare with others and what other acharyas have said, other philosophers have said. We will compare more on that at some point in time.
So Prabhu, is there any reference of worshipping this Jyoti or this light in any way?
No. Jyoti is not from the Vedic literature.
It's not, right? Like Virat Rupa is there, impersonal is not there, but no. How about Shankaracharya? He also spoke about the light? No.
Shankaracharya
was, really?
If you look at the teachings, this is a point which I will again say once more. I'll repeat myself later when we come to that session. The Shankaracharya's core books are the commentaries on the 10 Upanishads. He gave a commentary on the Brahma Sutras, and he also gave a commentary of the Brahma Sutras, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Upanishads. Three things. These are called the Prasthanatraya, according to him. Because he was able to do it, everybody else following him who had a different view had to also give a commentary on these three things: the Brahma Sutra, Bhagavad Gita, and the 10 Upanishads. It doesn't mean that there are only 10 Upanishads or there are just 108 Upanishads. There are many more. Anyways, in that Brahma Sutra Bhashya, it has 4 adhyayas or 4 chapters, so to say. Each of these chapters have various adhikaranas or topics. And each of these topics, there are various sutras. That's the categorization there. So from the third Adhyaya onwards, he begins a criticism, a critique of various philosophical systems, which includes, there is a philosophical system called the Pashupatas, those who worship Lord Shiva in a particular form. Then he criticizes the Buddhists, he criticizes the Jains, he criticizes all of them. So often people think that following the words of Swami Vivekananda or Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, oh, you follow your path, I'll follow my paths. But that was not the case with our classical commentators. Whether we agree with Shankaracharya or not, he is a classical commentator in the sense that his source of understanding, his source is the Vedic literature. From this Vedic literature, I take this set of verses and this is my understanding. Understanding can be right or wrong. That is a different issue. But the source is the Vedic literature. And in that sense, we typically go with classical commentators, because when we talk on a subject, at least the reference should be clear. Whereas when you hear from Ramakrishna Paramahamsa or Swami Vivekananda, it becomes more like, have a good public relation exercise. You are okay, I am okay, your path is fine, my path is fine. That doesn't happen so. So the fourth Adhyaya of the Brahma Sutra, or the fourth chapter, is all about how one does sadhana. The third talks about the absolute truth, and the fourth talks about how to reach that absolute truth. And in that, we don't find all these Jyoti and all these things as given by Shankaracharya too. And even the Brahma Sutra doesn't talk about it, and even Shankaracharya doesn't. In fact, the focus, if any, should be at the tip of the nose on the personal form of the Supreme Lord, on the four-handed form of the Supreme Lord and the like. However, there is a mention of Jyoti in the Upanishad to say that there is a Supreme Lord within the Jyoti. Whereas the Buddhist form of, what the Upanishad talks about is within the realm of light, within the mandala of Aditya, or within the Surya Loka, there is the Supreme Lord. They talk about that aspect. But the Buddhist thing, the Buddhist practice, they take out the absolute truth. They just say, okay, focus on just the light. But how can we, even if we were to focus on the absolute truth within the Surya Mandala, how can we access it? It's not possible for us. Does that help, Prabhu?
Oh, yes, Prabhu, very much. Actually, it is eye-opener. I used to think that, okay, somewhere in some scripture it is talked about the worshipping of the light. But now I got totally confused. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
So we will come to that. There's something called as Architopasana from the Upanishads which we get. We will come to that when we come to that session, hopefully in 3-4 weeks or so.
Sure, Prabhu.
We'll go more on that, what the Upanishads talk about. Yeah. Any other comment or thought any of you would like to say?
Even I was thinking that Brahma Jyoti is the talk in the Upanishads, and in fact Shankaracharya also, I was thinking that Brahma Jyoti is something which they speak.
So no, there is Brahman is one thing. Brahma Jyoti is the emanation of light from the absolute truth. That is one. And the Buddhist notion of focusing on the candlelight, that is something else. They're all different things altogether. Does that help, Mataji, or you are still in confusion?
No, yes, Prabhu. It was already solved. I was just saying that even I was thinking like that.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comment, Ahila Mani?
No. Even Vardhan about the Jyoti form, Jyoti system, or worshipping the Jyoti. If you remember South Vardhala, he was talking about the Jyoti. Even I feel this now. It is a great eye opener for me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's what this 11th, because the 12th is the key in the Bhakti chapters in the Bhagavad Gita. The 11th actually opens our eyes, as you said. That's this drashtum, which Arjuna is talking about. It actually opens our eyes to many aspects when we hear it carefully here.
Prabhu, I have one question.
Yes, Prabhu.
Is it okay? I know it's late. Is it okay to ask?
Please, let's go.
Okay. Prabhu, I understand, the two arm form of the Lord is personal. But why is the Virat Rupa associated with an impersonal feature? Because there is
Very nice question.
because it is still the
Yeah.
personal form that the Lord is showing. It's just more Virat.
Okay. So the thing with Virat Rupa is the form of the Supreme Lord is eternal. Correct? With the Virat Rupa form is not eternal. So the nature of the absolute truth is Sat, Chit, Ananda. What does Sat mean? Eternal. Eternal means it is not like my body. Today, I mean, once upon a time, I was, I had some cells in my body. I was small, and today I'm at this age. Tomorrow I'll become old. It will be something else. And there is so much blood, mucus, and stool within my body. And whatever, bile, everything is there. All the juices, everything is there. But Supreme Lord's form is not made of this blood, mucus, stool. It is eternal. And the Virat Rupa form of the Supreme Lord is made up of all these material elements which are not eternal. So it is trying to see the absolute truth in a way which somebody can relate to. And this is just like, like a magician showing something. It is not a real form. It is at a given snapshot in time. This is how the whole universe looks like. And since the entire universe is within the Supreme Lord and it comes from him, therefore, it is related to the Supreme Lord. But this is not the actual form of the Supreme Lord. So it can look like a person. You look at some images. Maybe I should open this here itself.
So it is mystical, but it is truth, right? It is still a truth.
No, it is not eternal. It is this form of the Supreme Lord, this Virata Rupa form of the Supreme Lord that you see here, correct?
Yes.
We come to more pictures that I have here. This particular form. All of these, not just this, there are different planetary systems, correct? Here, we will come to that very soon. All planetary systems, the fire elements, etc. These are all material energy. Material energy does not have Sat, Chit, Ananda associated with it. It is the spiritual form of the Supreme Lord which has a Sat, Chit, Ananda associated with it. And therefore, it is not a permanent form. It is a temporary form. Okay. So you even see, for example, the different devatas, you see the different rishis. I mean, this is just like a poetic way of, like an artistic way of coming up with this diagram. Nobody has seen that universal form, so we really don't know if all these heads were lined up this way, etc. Arjuna saw all the different devatas, all the different rishis. And we also know that, like say, Ashwatthama of this Dwapar Yuga is going to become one Saptarishi there in his next birth. So the rishi will change. But the Supreme Lord's form changes significantly. He goes from a childhood form to the age of 12 and he remains 12 and he comes back to it. Why? Just so that he can have a reciprocation with living entities. This Vishwarupa form doesn't have any reciprocation with living entities. And therefore it is a temporary form. Anything which a form of the matter, like it was a snapshot of how matter is configured then and how matter is going to be configured in future. The element of time is present. But in the spiritual world, the time as we know doesn't exist. The nature of time is that of degrading everything. In the spiritual world, time doesn't do it that way. So this entire, I think, verse from 19 to 32 or 45, it's all about this Kala Rupa of Krishna. We'll hear more about that.
Okay.
Okay. Any other or comments?
I have 2-3 small questions. I think
Please.
it's just, not just related to this. I think I have seen somewhere in the forward or something like this, or some things. So just ranging thoughts, I probably would like to clarify. I think you can answer it afterwards. One question was, we have heard many stories, even if we say it myth. So then also that devotees of Lord Shiva were killed by Lord Vishnu, or whatever.
Devotees of Lord Shiva were what?
Killed by Lord Vishnu in one or other form. like Ravana, like Bhishmasura. I mean, they were the great devotees of Lord Shiva.
Okay, this itself is a statement which is not fully true, but you please continue.
I mean, not like the basically they were the demons, but yes, they were the great devotees of Lord Shiva also.
No, if you take
At least what
people commonly think, but Ravana is not a devotee of Lord Shiva. It is like, let's take the example, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. You know both of them, right?
Correct, yes.
Both Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu did immense tapasya, and so that Lord Brahma can notice them. And Lord Brahma noticed them because they did tapasya to such an extent that the balance of the world was disturbed. So that to basically get that attention of Brahma, they did tapasya. Likewise, Ravana did tapasya to get the attention of Lord Shiva. It is not that he did tapasya to please Lord Shiva, the way he wants. It was, I want the attention of Lord Shiva to help me get what I want. So a devotee, by very nature, a devotee, be it of Krishna or be it of anybody, does devotion. Bhakti means, ideally, according to the Shastra, bhakti means only for Krishna. Let us even bring down the definition. It is for anybody. If it is for, say, Lord Ganesh, Lord Shiva, or anybody, it should be in a mood to please him or her, that Devi or like Goddess Durga. So it is not that you have to give me something. So these demons who were killed by Krishna, like for example, we have other examples to Banasura and others later.
Yeah, we have many examples actually.
All of them, they tried their best to cheat Lord Shiva. They were, if I'm a devotee of somebody, I am not going to cheat somebody. But their thing was, hey, I'm using my intelligence and saying, you please ensure that I will never be defeated by this person, that person, etc. And Lord Shiva knows that how much ever you try, there will always be a loophole because living entities are finite. And he then leaves it to the Supreme Lord to come and take care of the rest. Right? So it is not like Lord Shiva, Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna kills the devotees of Lord Shiva. It is that more so that those who are in the mode of ignorance quite often worship Lord Shiva to satisfy those propensities. Now, there are also many great sages who are not in the mode of ignorance. They worship Shiva because they like his aspect. And therefore, there is an aspect of Lord Shiva called as Dakshinamurti. In his form as Dakshinamurti, those sages who worship him, he takes them to his loka and teaches about Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna to them. He is Lord Shiva as a teacher. Dakshinamurti is, someday I'll probably send you the picture on WhatsApp group. He teaches about Krishna to the sages, and these sages then go to the spiritual world by dint of the teachings of Lord Shiva. So that is why Lord Shiva is also a great Acharya. So the common TV serials and movies don't go to this latter aspect of Lord Shiva as Dakshinamurti. They only see the other first half, what happens. That's what we discussed. Does that help for your first question, Mataji?
Actually, no. Prabhu, you didn't let me complete my question.
I understood. I didn't even ask you. I'll let you complete the question. Please go ahead.
Actually, I don't believe I definitely see it in the movies or something, but it's not. But I was just asking, though it is a myth, or I do not rely on that or do not believe, but is there any story, even if a story and not the scripture or certified, that a devotee of Lord Vishnu was killed by any other? Is there any such a story, or even a reference or anything? One question.
There is a famous verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, where in the pastime of Ajamila, where Yamaraj says, you have no jurisdiction over a devotee of Krishna or Vishnu. Don't bring such people who have chanted the holy names of Krishna to me. And so the moment somebody takes service or takes shelter of Krishna, it is not like, see, anyways, most of us are practicing devotees. We all will die. And what happens at the time of death? Our soul is taken by some agents. Either it could be Vishnu Dutas or it could be by Yamadutas. Now, depending on the practice that we have done, we can go to different lokas or we can be completely liberated. But the question that you're asking here is, does Lord Shiva personally come to kill a devotee of Vishnu?
Or anybody for that matter. I mean, not only Lord Shiva. It's
or anybody, let's say Lord Shiva, Lord Ganesh, etc.
anyone.
No, because the Devatas are much more conversant with the principles of Vedic literature than us. One should never hurt a devotee, like even a practicing devotee who even is not perfect, who is say 10 to the power of -6%. Krishna says that in the previous chapter, right? Api chetsu duracharo bhajate mam ananyabhak sadureva samantavya. Even if my devotee does the most abominable of all activities, sadureva samantavya. You should consider him as sadhu. So they follow Krishna's instruction. All these devatas are all great devotees of the Supreme Lord. They will follow Krishna's instruction, and therefore they do not try to kill or intentionally put down a devotee. They try to help him at their best. Even if a devotee is doing something wrong, they try to help him. That is the nature of their activities.
And there's a story in Bhagavatam where Brahma himself tries to mystify the Gopas, right? And he
Correct.
takes them to the Brahma.
Correct. That is the case where he doesn't realize the greatness of devotees. So that is in a state of ignorance that can happen, but not in a state of fully knowing everything.
Right.
Yeah, I was just trying to search, is there any story, or for that matter, even anything which is forwarded or something. I was trying to search or something, but I didn't find, so I was trying to check with you.
And any reason why, any particular motivation?
Basically, the thought process, what was going right, that are there certain elements or something which safeguards the devotees from falling down, or is there something, because others are devotees also. I mean, I was just thinking in the sense of understanding myself better and probably explaining it to someone else also. So on those lines, I was just thinking that the others are also devotees. They are devotees of Lord Shiva. I mean, not the proper devotees who doesn't want anything for themselves. I'm not talking about them, but those who actually claim that yes, I am the devotee. Or
you mean to say there are two. There are those who worship the devatas to please the devatas, and there are those who worship the devatas to please themselves.
I don't know. Basically, I don't know somebody else. But I'm saying people whom we have seen in these stories, or I actually do not know the intentions or the real desire of someone else. But probably whosoever claims that yes, or probably in the stories or something what we have heard or we have read so far, that those who are actually worshipping, maybe the selfish desires or something that we see afterwards, but probably we do not know that beforehand. So those who say that I am the great devotee of this or someone, are there certain elements which do not protect them from falling down, or because what makes the devotion, the difference in devotion, that is what something I was wondering. That is
what
why
makes a difference in devotion, meaning I didn't get it.
Difference in devotion means the others are, when they are trying to please their whatever form they are worshipping, are there some elements which are not guiding them completely? Are there certain elements which they are not completely understanding in the sense?
Yes, definitely, because they are not under the full guidance of the scriptures. They are going with their likes and dislikes, but the essence of the scriptures is not what they're going with. Like say I may be worshipper of Lord Ganesh, etc. But what is the scriptural basis for that fully? That's so in that sense, it is incomplete. And if there is a mercy from somebody, they will get connected to the real bhakti. Bhakti, the definition of bhakti is anyabilashita shunyam jnana karmadi anavritam anukulyena krishnanushilanam. Bhakti is meant for Krishna. You cannot have anybody else other than Krishna for bhakti and call it as bhakti. So the object of or the goal of that bhakti should also be clear. Not just the process can be similar, but the goal should be clear. And so they are doing something wrong, but it doesn't mean that they will be punished. They will most likely get something great. The worshippers of the Devatas can go to the Devaloka, Yanti Devalokan, which we heard in the previous chapter. Those worshippers of Devatas, they go to the Devalokas, and it is far better than our earth, our Bhuloka. They are not losing materially something, but spiritually they are losing the result of their endeavors. Or it's I should say in a limited sense, because for some time they're losing it. But when they go to the Devalokas, that particular Devata will help them further. So they're going in an indirect method. That's it. But
Yes,
your
Prabhu.
concern here is why some people get access to Krishna and others. They seem to be very sincere in their efforts, and just because they're worshipping other devatas, they get to go to the absolute truth. They
Right.
should also be having to go there. Is that your concern?
Correct. What is the difference? Why they do not understand? Or in fact, for that matter, even I was not convinced for some up to some time, not recent, some time back also. Even I was not convinced. So, what is the difference? Basically, now I mean I understood, so I am convinced, so that's fine. But why? How someone else will take it? Because there are so many sects.
Right.
Many things, and they take shelter of somehow like it's a Radha Swami. So it's a sect which is they again Nirvikar and nothing, but they say Radha Swami. Now what is Radha Swami?
This
Radha Swami is Krishna.
No. This Radha Swami satsang that you're talking about. This is
right.
When you hear anything from them, the first question you should ask them is, what is the source of your belief system? Whatever you're telling, tell me who your acharyas are. They will not be able to go beyond 1800 AD. So it is somebody has come up with some idea and they are coming about it. But if you look at like Srila Prabhupada's mission here, it goes to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Lord, and prior to that it goes to Madhvacharya, who received it from Vyasa, and it goes all the way to Krishna. So this lineage is very important. Otherwise, just because somebody says Radha Swami or any other, like I can show you various other, I can show other videos of this newly popular person, Swami Vishveshwarananda, I think is his name. He sings all the Braj songs, he worships Radha and Krishna, but his philosophy is different. He has a tilak which is black in the center and I think red or white on the sides, something like that. Vishveshwarananda or something is his name. Everybody can come up with something, but we cannot believe it. And we cannot believe it because people go to a philosophy which they like, not what is being told as the absolute truth. For a long time in our own spiritual life, we may not be able to access the absolute truth because we are not purified completely as yet. That is why the scriptures say, first and foremost, know what is the source of knowledge you should get it from. The source of knowledge should be something which is given by the absolute truth, and it should be handled down in disciplic succession by somebody. We should firstly have faith in scriptures and the person giving it. And then when we practice it, we'll get it. What happens typically in our world is, it's the other way around. I like a particular thought process. I go to a person who subscribes to that thought process. So it is not scripture, person, thought process. This is the better way to go with. This is the shastrically advised way. But what people go is what I like, person, and then the particular scripture there. So we do the opposite of what is recommended. And Krishna gives that there are so many sects because jivas have come into this material world. Jivas have come into this material world because they have their numerous desires. And Krishna satisfies all their numerous desires. There will be numerous sects, there will be numerous organizations, both spiritual and material organizations. This actually is indicative of how open Krishna is, that he allows full freedom for us. I think you're not convinced, Mataji, right?
No, no,
Maybe
Guruji.
tough to convince.
Actually, I'm already convinced. I was just trying to get more facts from you. I mean,
Okay.
I just wanted to confirm actually that what it is. I was trying to understand a little more.
Okay. It's 9:30. I think I'll have to end here. Thank you very much. Jai. And we'll continue. Please do join for our morning sessions, as also the next weekend we'll continue with this 11th chapter.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.